Hello. You are going to be doing an experiment. The purpose of that experiment is to find the relationship between the force exerted on a spring and the stretch of that spring, and to interpret the slope and the area from the graph formed. You just have to worry about the first part of that. Now, I'm going to give you some information as to how that experiment is going to work. Then I'm actually going to give you another video where I do the experiment because you are maybe going to be able to do this at home. So, um, this is a pretty simple experiment. All we have to do is stretch a spring and figure out how hard we actually pulled that spring. And in the case of this experiment, we're just going to be stretching a rubber band, which can act pretty much like a spring because there's lots of things that are springy. And so I'm going to be hanging on that rubber band some masses, and they're actually going to be quarters that I found in my house. And I put them in some envelopes. I'm going to hang them from the rubber band. So this is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to start out. The rubber band is going to have a certain length to it, and we're going to call that zero stretch. And then we're going to add quarters, and that's going to have a certain mass. And that stretch, we're going to be able to measure. Okay, so you need to write a procedure for this experiment. And of course, you're going to have in that procedure, how are you going to actually measure your data? This is going to be pretty simple for you to write, but you need to write your procedure. After you've written your procedure, you're also going to need a data table. And so I'm going to put up a data table right on my paper right now, but you're going to do it on the actual assignment document. To put in a data table, you just go to Insert and then go to Table. And my data table is actually going to have 4 columns, and I'm going to go down a long way because I don't know how many data points I'm going to get. Now, what are going to be in these columns? Well, we need to have the force, but you don't actually know the force that things are going to have because force comes in newtons, and I don't have any way to measure newtons in my apartment. So I'm going to be measuring it with grams. All right, so I'm going to be measuring mass, and that's going to be measured in grams, but you are going to have to convert to a force. There's going to be another video where you are going to be able to convert to force in newtons. I'm going to make sure that you remember how to do that if you don't. All right. And then of course we need the how much the length changed. All right. So we are going to have a column on this table, which is going to be the length. Remember, for displacement at least, we use the symbol x. And so we're going to measure that in centimeters. I'm going to measure that in centimeters, but it would be better if you graphed it in meters. So I'm going to write that on here. If you don't graph it in meters, you can convert it later on. So there's what your data table is going to need to look like in the experiment that you do. All right, so let's go back here one more time. In your procedure, remember that you are supposed to write how do we collect our data. All right, that's what I care about. And so you're going to tell me how are you collecting the mass, how are you collecting the force, all right. I'm sorry. And then more importantly, how are you collecting the length? Because that's what we're actually testing for. Okay. So I'm going to stop this video, and you are going to make your data table and your procedure in the lab report form. And then you'll continue on.